The Honor Magic VS is the new folding phone from Honor that's now released globally, and there's plenty of areas where it beats competitors like the Z Fold 4, but there's also areas where it doesn't. Now, I've been using this as my daily phone for a few weeks now, and I have to say that overall I'm impressed with it. It's got great specs, a good camera system, and a great look and feel to it, but it does still have its downsides. The overall design is pretty good, and most impressive is this gearless single-piece hinge. The phone folds completely flat together, leaving no gaps, and this makes it great to hold or place in your pocket. Now, it folds so tightly together that if you fold it over a piece of paper, you can actually pick it up from that paper. Unfortunately, with the Honor Magic VS though, we don't get any official IP rating. Now, the external display is a 6.45-inch 120Hz OLED. We get a resolution of 2560 by 1080, HDR10+, a 21.3:9 aspect ratio, and it's got a peak brightness of 1200 nits. It's got 1920Hz PWM dimming to make it easy on the eye, and overall it's a nice and responsive display with even bezels around the edge. Now, internally, we've got a 90Hz 7.9-inch OLED display, and this has a resolution of 2272 by 1984, HDR10+, and again 1920 PWM dimming. Overall, it's a nice display and it's great to use. The downside is that we only get 90Hz instead of 120, and the peak brightness is only 800 nits. I've been using this out in the sunlight and it has been fine, it just could be a little bit brighter. It's honestly not been a problem at all for me in the UK, but if you're in a hotter climate and you're out in the sun a lot, then it may be something to consider. There is of course a small indent in the center of the display where it folds, but when using it and looking at it head on, you just don't see it. But of course, you can feel it running your fingers across the display. Now, one annoyance for me has been when using the phone on the table in full screen mode. Sometimes I'll just place it down on the table for two-handed typing, but it then wobbles as you press it due to it having the camera bump in one corner while the other corner is completely flat, and it's also the same situation when folded. Now, a workaround would have been to turn it completely upside down when typing, but unfortunately the software doesn't allow you to do this. It's going to rotate to the left or the right, but it won't go upside down. You can, however, fold it halfway, then place it on the table and use like a laptop, and that's the way I've been getting around it. The only other problem that I've ran into with the display is my habit of dragging the notification down from the top center of the display. Now, on this, there's a very small bump from the hinge, and this makes it a little bit uncomfortable, and sometimes I do actually miss the swipe, but after a few days I got used to just swiping from the top side. Now, when it comes to the software, we get macOS 7.1, and I have to say it's been a pleasure to use, and I've only ran into a couple of bugs and issues. Now, when using it in the full screen mode, we've got the multi-window, which is great for multitasking. With any application you open, you can set it to take up half of the display, or you can have a floating window that you can move around and resize. Unfortunately, it is limited to 2 floating windows at the same time, but you can minimize the windows and access them from the sidebar, and this works pretty well. Now, again, the button to change the window is at the top center when full screen, so it can be a little bit awkward to press under this tiny bump for the hinge. When looking for a previously opened app, we also don't have to keep swiping through all the apps that we've opened, as this device shows us 6 at a time. Now, most of the apps I've been using daily have worked flawlessly. I can fold and unfold the phone while using the applications, and it just changes orientation as needed, and it works well. The only issues I've run into app-wise is that on portrait videos, so the likes of TikTok and YouTube Shorts, you will get a little bit of the size cut off when watching through the external display, but of course, if you then unfold it, you can see everything, and it's much larger than I'm used to. I've also found an issue on the Facebook Creator Studio app, where the notification at the bottom is slightly cut off, but it isn't really a huge issue, and I'm not even sure if we blame the phone or the Facebook app. And finally, the other problem I've ran into is when using the YouTube app. If I try to upload a short, sometimes the option is there so I can do it as normal, but sometimes there's just no option to upload a YouTube short, so I can't. We've got a fingerprint unlock thanks to the side-mounted scanner, and this has worked well and fast most of the time. There have been a couple of times where I've had to try again for the unlock, but not so much that I'd say it's an issue. The face unlock works well, and thanks to Raise to Wake, you just pick it up and then swipe up, or if you're holding it, I always unfold it and swipe up, and then you're good to access the phone. The whole OS in general use has been smooth, fast, and just a pleasure to use thanks to the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, 12GB of RAM, and then 512GB of internal storage. I've also been very happy with it when it comes to the battery life, and the Magic VS has easily lasted me the day with plenty of screen on time. Now it's powered by a huge 5000 mAh battery with 66W fast charging, so even when you do get low, it doesn't take long to recharge. For those of you concerned about synthetic benchmarks, on Geekbench 6 it got a single core score of 1427 and then 3778 for multi, it got 5008 for OpenCL, and then over on the Wildlife Extreme test we get 2752. Now onto the cameras, we've got a 50 megapixel primary that uses the Sony IMX800 with an aperture of f1.9. We get a 50 megapixel ultra-wide and macro, and this has an aperture of f2.0. And then finally, we've got an 8 megapixel telephoto with 3x zoom. We get two 16 megapixel selfie cameras, one on the external display and then one on the internal display, and I believe it's the same sensor for both. When it comes to the primary camera, we get some great photos. Now these ones here are all just point and click without any adjustments, and I have to say they've all come out well. It's not up there with the top tier flagship cameras, but we've got great detail, great color, and a nice exposure to all the photos. Now the colors are relatively true to life, and we get plenty of detail in both the highlights and the shadows. In all, it's a great camera. I did get a little bit of clipping on the sign from the reflection of the sun, and again, a small part of the sky in this photo is clipped, but overall I am impressed. When it comes to the video, we get 4K at 60 frames a second, and again, we've got good quality video, nice colors, and even when I turn around quickly, everything remains in focus. The stabilization is okay, and you can see it has smoothed out my walking a bit, but you can still clearly see my footsteps. For portrait photos, it also does pretty well, and we've got nice photos with good edge detection and only some very minor mistakes. Whether at 1x or 2x zoom, I found the portraits to work well. The ultra-wide camera is okay, but I have noticed it tends to underexpose my shots. We've got a bit of a lack of detail and color, but I find this to be the same with most phones, however, and my preference is to stick with the primary. You have to switch to the Pro video mode if you want to take videos from the ultra-wide, and again you can see it's not as good as the primary camera. We've only got 1080p video, there's a lot less detail and a lot more noise than the primary camera, and my footsteps do seem to be causing an issue. Now over to the 3x telephoto, we get some reasonable photos here, and although it's only an 8 megapixel sensor, I actually prefer these to the ultra wide. While it's 3x optical zoom, we can actually zoom in all the way to 30x, but I wouldn't recommend doing this as the optical zoom is only 3x. For those who want it, there's a quick video sample here from the telephoto at 3x, and again you can see there's not much detail and plenty of noise. The selfie camera performs relatively well, and we get some good quality photos with nice color and detail. Now although it's the same camera on the external and the internal display, I always recommend using the external one. The internal display is much more prone to those smudges from your fingerprints, and you can see this here on the shot I took where I forgot to clean it before taking the photo. Now the video is also pretty good from the selfie camera, but unfortunately we are restricted to 30 frames a second at 1080p. Now nighttime photos are okay, they're not the best but they do still work. Now this picture of my car was taken in pretty much pitch black and it still managed to capture most of it. Even when there's a bit of light it does tend to struggle a little bit, and you need to have a steady hand while taking the shot along with not much movement in the shot. Now when it comes to video it's also very noisy and it's lacking detail, but you can still see what's going on. For selfie night videos, the screen lights up white to provide a little bit of extra light while filming, and to be fair, this has really helped with the video, but you can see plenty of noise along with the judders of the footsteps. For media, the Magic VS has just been incredible. We've got a nice big display to watch it on, and we've also got plenty of options. We can watch in full screen mode with the black letterboxes, we can watch YouTube with the video on the top half and everything else underneath, and if we flip the phone to the side, we also get more recommendations to the side. The only thing to mention here is that because of the aspect ratio, you're still going to get some black bars on the side when watching 16:9 content on the external display. Now the Magic VS features an IMAX enhanced certified dual stereo speaker, and in terms of sound quality, they sound great, they go nice and loud without sounding too tinny, and it makes watching media a pleasure if you're not using headphones. Now, the only thing to mention here is that I tend to flip the phone 90 degrees to the right when watching media, as if you hold the phone the normal way up, both speakers are on the left-hand side, so it sounds much better having one each side. Now, I'm not much of a mobile gamer, but I have to say the gaming experience was great. Being a larger device, it's just more comfortable to hold, and then of course the larger display just makes for a much better viewing experience and easier controls. Now, thanks to the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, you know it's going to handle anything you throw at it, and it just feels that little bit more immersive on a larger display. When gaming, your hands are covering the punch hole camera and they're nowhere near the speakers, so it just works incredibly well. I had a great time playing Asphalt 9, and again, the larger display just made it so much better. And then when playing a first-person shooter like Call of Duty, it was a little bit strange at first with the more square aspect ratio, but once you get used to that, it's another great experience. Now, of course, for those that want, you can also game on the external display for a much wider aspect ratio that you'd usually get with a phone. Now, one thing you can't do though is switch between folded and unfolded during gameplay, as it keeps the same aspect ratio and just stretches it to fit, so it won't look good at all. If you are playing in folded mode and want to switch to unfolded, all you have to do is restart the game. Now, the global version of the Honor Magic VS has just launched at Mobile World Congress. Unfortunately, I don't have the price at the time of the review, but the Chinese pricing related to $1,260 or £1,060, so hopefully it's going to be close. Now, I have to say I'm a fan of it overall, and I'm going to continue to use this as my daily phone. It's great for watching media, browsing the web and going through all my socials, and the camera system is good enough for pictures and videos. It would have been nice to have a 120Hz inner display, but in all honesty, I have been happy with 90, and I haven't ever felt like it wasn't smooth enough. I would say the only things to consider if this is something you're looking to buy is number 1, do you need an IP rating? If you're going to get it wet, then it might be a very expensive mistake. And then number 2, do you need a bright display? As I've said though, 800 nits has been fine for me to see even out in sunlight, but if you are out in sunlight all the time in a very hot country, then something like the Z Fold 4's 1200 nits display might be more suitable. So hopefully I've covered everything, but of course if there's anything I've missed or you've got any questions at all, just leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, smash a thumbs up. If you didn't, hit the thumbs down twice, and I'll see you guys in the next one.